The Democrat Party supermajority in the House of Representatives, even beyond a supermajority, beyond 60%. Gave the Senate supermajority 60 votes and the White House. And they did that because they were frustrated and they did want change in D.C. They wanted D.C. to operate honestly. People were frustrated that Republicans were in charge for a time, but yet deficit spending occurred. And yeah, when you look, the deficit spending that was occurring was national security related with the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and homeland security and Reagan-esque. You know, Reagan was deficit spent, and we kind of thought, well, since it's in the name of national security, but we were wrong. We should have held our line. We should have offset other spending. That's a mistake that we made. And the people sent a message in '96 when they gave, '06, when they gave the House to Nancy Pelosi and to Harry Reid, and it was reinforced in the '08 elections. And frankly, we got the message. And one of the things that I want to point out in our message is that I really believe as a Republican Party, and I know this, probably half of you may not even be Republican, but I want to talk about my observations from last November. And so I think we've gotten back to the principles of limited government and less spending, focusing on reducing and eliminating the deficit and then on to the national debt. I'm working on a constitutional amendment that hopefully we can get the grassroots Americans behind to force a balanced budget, because I've learned that if you don't have that constitutional mandate, it's just too easy to avoid having to make those tough decisions and just saying, you know, we'll spend a little bit extra or pay more over here because there won't be those consequences. So we do need a balanced budget and a plan to pay back the national debt. But the people wanted change. They were frustrated with the Republicans. Like I said, between '06 and '08, message received. The change they also wanted is they wanted government to stand up for the people. That they wanted to be heard. They wanted a government that not only heard them, but represented them, and one they can trust. And I don't think they got that change. People wanted it, and I understand living out there, or not living, but working out there, how frustrating some of the crap was out there with the behind-the-door deal makings, the strong arms to get your political agenda through, ignoring the people. And I think Scott Brown's election was exactly that. When you look at when he took off, was when the Cornhusker kickback occurred. Yeah. And that's when people said, oh my, I thought we voted against all of this. But yet, it seems to be even worse right now. And so the people sent another message to Washington, D.C. And we're living through this last year where everything was done, all the major bills were done in Nancy Pelosi's office, then maybe brought to a committee like my Committee on Energy and Commerce, where we had cap and trade, we had health care. We were the only committee that even saw the stimulus bill before it came to the floor. A couple observations there is that even on the cap and trade and the health care bill, on each of those we spent 5 straight days, well over 50 hours, hundreds of amendments, of which 2 Republican amendments were actually passed, and a lot of them were meritorious. It's just that Nancy Pelosi laid down the line, no Republican amendments passed, and it was party line on every one of them. But even on the Democrat side, and the couple of amendments that passed on the Republican side, when it was reported out, Nancy Pelosi just threw that in the trash and started all over again in secret and in office. And if you remember in December, right before the Cornhusker kickback, Nancy Pelosi walked out of the White House, stood in front of the microphones, and said, well, I thought you said this was going to be a transparent Congress, and now you guys are in an office in the White House with two people with no cameras. I thought you said you were going to be transparent. Her answer was, this is the most transparent Congress in the history of America. Direct quote. And people are just rolling their eyes. I know I didn't roll my eyes. I kind of yelled a 4-letter word and threw something at the TV. But that's the culture that we're in right now. So people are starting to realize that they hope for change that they can trust, but it hasn't happened. And let me give you just a few more examples of what I feel have led up to the frustration. First thing out of the chute, before the president is even inaugurated, Nancy Pelosi is working on a stimulus bill. A stimulus bill which we now celebrate today, happy anniversary stimulus bill, $800 billion of taxpayer dollars right to the deficit, make it $1 trillion with interest payments, and most of it, about 60% of the $800 billion, just went to government programs to expand them. Basically, they used an economic crisis to be able to grow government at a faster clip than they could from the budget. The honest way of doing it. And they rammed it down our throats. They brought it to us for a vote right from Speaker Pelosi's office. No amendments were allowed other than hers. And they rammed it down our throats and got it to the president's desk. And now, a year later, here we stand. And how many of you have seen or received any benefits from that stimulus bill? Please stand up, raise your hand. I want to meet you. I know there has to be somebody. I've asked every group I've stood in front of for a year now. I have yet to have someone. And in particular, Nebraska and small Midwest states who had governments that were actually governed somewhat correctly and didn't have a failing state government really took the shaft. So in essence, what we have done is sent our tax dollars to California to bail them out for less than 1 year.